What's going on, everyone? Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another unscripted review by yours truly. Today, I want to give my thoughts on the open playtest for the new Sonic Racing game, Sonic Racing Crossworlds. The open playtest has been available now over the weekend. I believe that as of recording this on Sunday, this should be the last day, if not maybe second to last day. I'm not sure, but it was the weekend that you could play the game for the open playtest, including both the single player mode and the multiplayer mode, both the world racing or whatever it was called, and the festival that they had with the Persona characters. So I want to talk about it totally unscripted, and hopefully this is entertaining. Hopefully you like this, but this is just going to be very podcast style, so my thoughts might go everywhere. Hopefully you can follow along. Hopefully it's enjoyable. But let's get started. Waste no more time here. First thing I want to talk about really quickly is the single player mode for the game. So you can play this at any time, and you actually had to start with single player mode, at least for what like my gameplay. You had to start with single player mode before you could play multiplayer. I think this is really cool. I think that it's a good way to get introduced to the game by having at least one set of races to get accustomed to the controls and everything before you switch over to the multiplayer mode. That way you can kind of get used to what this game has to offer. I thought that was fine. The Grand Prix mode, it's the basic single player mode. Kind of think of Grand Prix from Mario Kart, same thing over here. I think it is great. So it's 4 tracks. 3 of them will be like the standard 3 tracks you get, and then the 4th track that you get is actually racing through all 3 of them in one race. I thought that was really cool. I thought it was a very unique idea to only have 3 tracks and have the 4th race be going through all 3 of them. So you kind of have to learn all the maps as you're playing, so that when you get to that final race, you kind of have to change your playstyle as you go. I thought that was really cool. I really enjoyed that. The AI for the bots that you'll be playing against is also pretty well done, actually. I'm surprised. One thing I did want to bring up, and I obviously, with only having 3 days of playtime, it's really hard to get like definitive evidence for this, but I do believe the bots have some sort of adaptive AI tool. I want to stress this isn't generative AI. I'm not talking about them generating AI content. Please don't take this as me saying generative AI. I'm talking about adaptive AI. What I mean by this is, when I was playing Grand Prix mode, the rival that you get, whoever ends up being your rival character, as you're playing the game, at least from what I noticed, the game will become easier or harder depending on how well you're playing. What I mean by this, so for example, my very first Grand Prix, I was playing Cream, my rival was Wave. The first race, they got 5th place. Like, Wave got 5th, I got 1st. So the second race actually got a little bit tougher, and Wave got 3rd, and I got 1st. The 3rd race, I actually struggled quite a bit on that race, even though I still got 1st. For, I would say, over half that track, I was probably 5th or 6th, somewhere around there. I don't, like, have the actual number I was, but for quite a bit of it, I wasn't in the top 3. So when that happened, it actually pulled it back a little bit and made it easier. So Wave got 2nd in that race. So it actually pulled back a little bit, I noticed, because then I was getting hit a lot less on the final race. And even though I got 1st on all 4 races, I definitely noticed on the last race especially that things felt a little bit easier. So I could be wrong on this. This is something that I would need the full game and a lot more testing to determine. But I do believe there is some form of adaptive AI to understand how well you're playing and, like, on average where you're at, to adjust the game as you go. I also didn't play a lot of the rivals on harder difficulties, so I don't know how harder difficulty AIs versus easier difficulty AIs play out. I would just guess that they automatically start more aggressive and maybe tune back as you go. I'm not sure. But that was just from personal anecdotal experience. I noticed that the better you're playing, the harder it gets, and if you start struggling, it will pull back a little bit. I think that's actually pretty cool. I like that idea because then it isn't feeling like a total wish-wash either direction. It doesn't feel like you can just instantly win every race by a landslide, but it also doesn't feel like you're going to struggle a crap ton. It does give you some wiggle room. I thought that was really cool. I like that, so no complaints there. The other single-player mode, Time Trial, there was only 3 tracks, which kind of sucked because in multiplayer there was like 9 or something. There was a lot more in the multiplayer mode than what you could play in single player. So I do kind of wish that the Time Trial included all the maps from the current tracks in multiplayer, but for what we did get, it's pretty cool. I like the idea. It's just a very simple practice mode. It gives you a little bit of options as well with like the boost power-ups that you can get, and it even shows you like a track to follow. So the first couple of times you can learn via that pathing system, and then once you learn that pathing system, you can learn other things to improve your time even more than that. So I thought that was kind of cool. I like that a lot. I think it's a great practice option, even though currently there's only 3 tracks that you can play on. So hopefully when launch comes out, you can play all the tracks, and that would be a lot better. Next, I want to talk about the customization options. I love the customization in this game. First off, I like that even so every character is classified into certain categories, where some characters are obviously like going to be faster, some characters handle a lot better, some characters have a lot more power, some characters have a lot better boost or acceleration. I like the fact though that character selection doesn't impact your overall performance. What I mean by that is when you look at the character stat distributions, none of these stats per character actually go over, it's like 20, I think. So the lowest, like obviously their lower stats are going to be pretty stinking low. They'll be like 5, maybe 10. But for the most part, it's not like any character has some wicked stat advantage. The most you can get from a character stat is like 20, which for all things considered is not that much. I thought that's really cool because it means that you can basically play any character you want based on what characters you like from the series or from any collaborations, and all of them will be viable in their own right. What matters a lot more is the carts and the gadgets you're using. I thought that was really cool. I really like that because it means that there's a lot more emphasis on building up your cart and what gadgets you want to use alongside your playstyle, rather than having to rely on certain characters and not being able to play your favorite characters. I thought that was awesome. So that was really, really good. Loved that aspect. On the subject of carts and gadgets as well, I really like how many playstyle options there are. So the carts also kind of fall into those subcategories, which means that you can choose what your playstyle is best and build off that. Great start. I love how it kind of serves as a foundation, and then you can buy different options to tweak those based on what you like. You can get gadgets to improve those stats based on what you like. I think that there's just so much playstyle combinations that you can work with in this game, and it really, really just, it allows anyone to get into this game. I really like that you can come from any sort of background with racing games in general, with any sort of playstyle you want to have, and have something work for you. I think that is incredible. And it's something that is pretty hard to do as well, is to make just plentiful options for anyone you want to play as and any cart you want to have. The fact that they have as many options as they do is really incredible. So I really like that. I hope that stays exactly the way it is right now. With cosmetic options, there's also a lot to choose from, and what I really like is that there's a lot of stuff you're just given for free. There's like 2 pages worth of just free decals for your car, and even if some of them are a little basic, you can have up to like 5, I think it's like 5 front and 5 back decals, so you can have up to 10 decals on your car, which means you can really build a lot based off the standard shapes and like ideas you're given. And then if you want to buy more that are like actual icons, symbols, whatever, they're really cheap. It's like 100 tickets per decal with like exceptions here and there. For the most part though, a lot of free stuff to choose from, which I really like. I really, really like how much cosmetic options you have just off the get-go, right? All the coloration for your cart, totally free. You don't have to buy any sort of color options there. So that was awesome. But you can still buy more customization. Like there are decals you can go and buy. There's auras for your car you can buy, which I thought was just the wildest idea, but I love it. I think it's super, super cool. There's even options for like the horn you have, because there is a horn that you can honk, and there's different options there, and they have different visual effects. It's just, they went the extra mile when it comes to cosmetics, not only for free players, but also for players who save up the currency to buy stuff. I love it. I love what they did there. None of it requires you to actually pay real money. Awesome stuff there. I hope they keep it that way. Moving on to the multiplayer. So the multiplayer was probably the biggest aspect for a lot of people when it came to the open network test, because it meant that you could play across the world with anybody else playing the open test. So I wanted to talk a lot about the multiplayer and give my own thoughts here. First off, just blanket statement, super, super fun. I love what they've done here. I love it. I know this sounds like me totally glazing the game, but I love it. I don't think I had a single bad game. I really don't. Even games, so I had one single game where I was last place, only one, and even that game, despite how tough it was being in last, it was still a fun experience overall. They have done an incredible job with making the experience as fun as it feels in this game. So first off, before you even get into a game, they have a matchmaking lobby is what it's called, where you'll get in this little ring and you'll have 11 other players on this little like pedestal ring as well. I think it's really cool. I think it's a nice little touch just to have its own little lobby as opposed to waiting in the main menu for a while. I like the fact that you can also interact with all the players, so you have like emotes. Even though they're pretty basic, they're still pretty cool, and they have voice lines for them all, which is awesome. I like that. I like the like system too. If you don't know, because I just learned this today on the third day of the playtest, you can go onto other characters' profiles and like their stuff. There is a like system. I thought that was also really cool, because you can give props to all the players that you're going to be playing with. I do kind of wish there was an option to do it outside after the race as well, instead of only being able to do it in the lobby, so unless I missed that, from what I know, you can only do it in the lobby prior to a race, which that kind of sucks, because I would like to also give props to people after races are done, especially during festival mode. But it's still really, really cool that there's just so much, like there's so many ways to spread positivity in this game. And I really, really like that. There's really not a lot of toxic things you can do in this game. There's no live chat or anything like that. I hope they keep it that way. So I really like that. There's also map voting in this game. I really like the map voting system. I don't know, so there is a random option where you can like just choose a random track, but from what I've noticed, it's not actually random. It'll still pick from the other maps that you can choose from. It's not like random from the entire map pool in the game. I don't know if that's on purpose or not, or if that was just experience and like anecdotal data, but if that is how it's supposed to work, I do kind of hope that it's changed to be maps from the entire map pool the game has. I'm not sure though. I can't speak on that. Again, when you only have 3 days worth of playtime, it's pretty hard to notice those things consistently, but I don't know. So hopefully that's something that if it's not in-game right now, it's something that on launch will be in-game. In terms of actual gameplay, let's get into the actual gameplay. First off, mechanics, love them. I really like that the mechanics in this game are very fluid. They're really easy to understand, they're really engaging. Nothing feels clunky at all. Like, I mean this. I'm someone who's a huge stickler when it comes to clunky mechanics, and there is not a single clunky mechanic in this game at all. I really, really like that. I love the fact that everything feels so fluid and polished when you're playing this game. they've done a really good job at making sure that they're like, so I should also mention, I played everything on PS5. So this is coming from PS5 experience. I can't really speak on PC experience, so I do apologize if there is something with PC. I would love to know about it, but I did not play on PC. With the PS5 experience, though, I never experienced any lag spikes. I never experienced any sort of latency issues, nothing like that. So everything down to the wire was polished and fluid and super, super well done. The maps look gorgeous. Every single track just visually looked insanely polished and just mind-boggling how gorgeous they looked. Oh my god. They looked really good. Like, for PS5 graphics on a TV that I've had for it's gotta be 10 years by now. This is not a new TV by any means. It still looks just fantastic. It looked insanely good. The color variety it works so well in this game. It is in this game's favor by a mile. It just looks visually stunning. And on the subject of tracks as well, gameplay-wise, I kind of already mentioned some of this, but they also play really well. None of the tracks feel like there are inherent advantages for certain characters or certain playstyles at all. Every single track feels like whatever playstyle you're running, you will have your moments to shine, and you will have your ways of like being first or being in top 3 wherever you want to be at. It comes a lot more down to just general skill expression and how you're getting and using items, right? Which I think is really cool. I like the fact that it isn't so much about what track you're on, and it's a lot more about just in general, like how you're playing the game. So I think that's really cool. I really like that a lot. Besides that, just a couple other things. This is going to be the only thing when it comes to like constructive criticism, because I'm not going to say this is a negative, but I do think this is something that should at least be looked at. Some items definitely need tweaking in this game. Again, this is coming from console play. I don't know how it looks PC, so correct me if I'm wrong, or if PC plays different, but on console, there are a couple items that are pretty absurdly busted. One that immediately comes to my mind is the slime one, where you get like a warp ring and then it like drops a bunch of slime on you and you have to like use your joystick in a circular motion to get it off. At least in my experience, it never works that way. Every single time I've done that, it feels like it takes a millennia to get the slime off, and it also makes it so I can't steer whatsoever, which I know is kind of like half of the intended mechanic, but there have been some moments that I'm not gonna say are frustrating, but it's just like a bruh, like really kind of moment where like, especially I have been in first place, I get slimed while flying, there is no way to steer, and I just bump into a wall and go from first to like 7th. Because that's another thing with this game, it's really hard to get a huge lead in this game. So, because it's really hard to get a huge lead, simple things like that really quickly lead to you dropping in places. So, the slime one especially is like really inconsistent, where sometimes I can get it off in like 2 seconds and sometimes it takes like 5 seconds. And I don't know why. So items like that it just might need a little bit of a tweaking. Another thing I noticed is that some items in the game are locked behind certain gadgets, especially good ones. Like the double boost, the warp ring. Those ones are locked behind certain gadgets that you have to equip, which isn't inherently bad, but I do kind of question why. I think it'd be fine if it was those gadgets just gave you it like at the start of the race, rather than also locking the ability to get those items behind the warp ring. But again, that's just kind of subjective, that's just me speaking. Other thing with items I will say is spawn rates. So there are different categories for items that you can get. There are hazards, offensive, defensive, and the boost items. And obviously they have different sort of effects. The thing I've noticed especially is that I feel like it is pretty hard to get especially hazard items. I almost never get hazard items at all, and sometimes also defensive items. I've noticed that way more often than not, you're either going to get attack items or you're going to get the boost items. I feel like the other two kind of get left behind. Once again, totally could just be experience, and across the 3 games, I just happen to get more of one subset over another subset, so this could just totally be me. But I certainly noticed that I was not getting a lot of the defensive items or the hazard items, especially once you get to a certain place. Once you get like top 3, you get a lot of attack items, you get a lot of boost items, but you don't really get a lot of the other items. So spawn rates for certain items either need to be looked into or might need some tweaking, but that's just my personal experience, so it could be totally different. Overall though, like I said, multiplayer is just super fun. I love what they've done here, especially as someone who has played a lot of Team Sonic Racing in the past. This is a huge step up from that game. I can already tell you right now, this will be a massive step up from Team Sonic Racing, and I am way more excited to see where this game goes. Last thing I just want to quickly touch on this is future content. So obviously when the game comes out, there is going to be a season pass. The other set of characters are going to be available, including some other ones, and there's going to be post-launch characters both in that season pass and in just for free. When it comes to the season pass especially, the only thing I would say is I really hope they stick to collaborations only for the season pass characters. This is something that it looks like they're doing already, because the first 2 packs are Minecraft and SpongeBob. So it looks like so far it's only collaborations going into the season pass. I really hope it just stays that way. I don't want a lot of Sega specific characters or Sonic specific characters to be locked behind the season pass. I think those characters deserve to have some recognition by being free to play characters. I know already, I believe Sonic Prime's characters are locked behind the season pass, but they're like, you buy it once and you have them, which I'm kind of 50-50 on that idea, but at the end of the day, they've already made the decision. So I'm hoping those are the only Sonic franchise characters that end up going in the season pass. I really don't want them to put like IDW characters in the season pass or like Sega franchise characters in the season pass. I really hope that it's like strictly other collaborations that go in that season pass, because the Sonic franchise characters really deserve to have the recognition in this game, because this is like the perfect game to introduce characters who haven't been in games before, right? IDW is a great example of this. I really hope those are going to be free characters. I would love to see them in this game, but that's just me speaking. Obviously, like that, those are just my hopes. If it ends up in the season pass, it ends up in the season pass. Either way, I'm probably going to buy the season pass or the digital deluxe edition. So, but that's the only thing I have when it comes to future content, and that kind of wraps up my review of the game. So overall, I think this game is fantastic. I love this game. I love what they're doing with it. The open playtest was one of the best experiences I've had with an open playtest. I think the last time I had this much fun on an open playtest was all the way back when I played the Black Ops 4 playtest back in, what was that, 2018? So pretty crazy to, go that long, but this has been an awesome open playtest. I really hope that it's just as fun once the full game comes out. And I hope you guys are also having fun with this game. So I'd really love to know what you guys think, just about the game, about where the game wants to go, anything like that. I'd really love to hear what your opinions about the game are, or any of your personal criticisms. I would love to know those too, or your personal experiences, anything like that. I'd love to hear about them, whether that is through the comments or whether that's just, liking the video, which I never really ask you guys to do, obviously, but I'd love to hear what you guys think about it as well. If you got to play the open playtest, I'd love to know your experiences with it. If you didn't and you watched other people, even then, I'd still like to know your opinions of what you saw, what you like, what you dislike, what Sega could do. And I hope you guys really enjoyed this style of video, and I hope I get to hear from you all pretty soon. Talk to y'all later.